Well, if you wanted the variables to fall into place to maximise Valtteri Bottas' chance of again winning a Grand Prix for Mercedes, here they are at Sochi, a circuit on which he's done very well and which he's always been quick, even back in the Williams days. On this occasion, he has a massive advantage going into the race over Lewis Hamilton, that is, his teammate, and that is because he's starting on the yellow medium Pirelli. Lewis is going to be on the soft tyre. The reason for that is that the two Mercedes runners were out on the yellow Pirelli medium tyre in Q2. That's pretty much standard procedure these days, although Max Verstappen for Red Bull also took that gamble, and everything was going reasonably well. Valtteri Bottas got in a time that stood up to take him into Q3. Lewis Hamilton, however, on his quickest, and it was his first flying lap, ran wide coming out of the last corner and had his lap time deleted. Valtteri had a big moment coming out of the corner, but just kept on the white line, so he kept his lap time. Lewis at this point was relatively unruffled and came in, wanted to keep the same set of medium tyres on to get a banker lap going into Q3, but the team nonetheless put on a new set of the medium tyres. Lewis was on that set when the red came out and they all had to go back into the pit lane with 2 minutes to go. What had happened was that Sebastian Vettel had lost it coming out of turn 4. That's the tight right after the long, very quick turn 3. You can run wide there, you can have a moment, but it's a kind of strange place to have a big accident. But Sebastian did. He was pretty shocked afterwards. Wind was knocked out of him, and as he got out of the car, he tried to pick up the front wing, put it back into the cockpit. Rather strange things. He's okay, but it was a big shunt. And I was thinking about why he lost it so dramatically, and I wonder whether it comes back to this business of he doesn't have a great back end on that Ferrari, and when Sebastian doesn't have a back end that sticks, he finds it very difficult to get the maximum from the car. He has to drive like everybody else. He can't do what he does really well, which is this V style that we've been talking about for so long. On top of that, of course, that right-hander is basically a 90-degree corner, so there's not a lot he can do there. So he went in relatively late, got the power on too aggressively and too quickly, lost the back end, and the rest is history. The big thing there was that Charles Leclerc was right behind him, and as he came out of the corner, he had to go between the car and the debris. Very lucky, great reflexes from Charles to avoid a big shunt there as well. So not a good day for Ferrari, and as a result of all that, just to finish the Ferrari story, Charles, when he did go out, when the track was open again, they got the timing wrong and he didn't get in a lap anyway, so he didn't make it through to Q3. He was irate, as you can imagine. Anyway, going back to Lewis Hamilton, he now came in like everybody else, and there was a big queue ready to go out for that last 2-minute sprint to get into Q3. A lot of quick drivers there. Lance Stroll was there too. He pulled out with an engine problem, but also Alex Albon, but he managed to get through. Lewis Hamilton, on this occasion, because of the amount of traffic and because of the time, they had to put the soft tyre on just to maximise his opportunity, because potentially he was going to be in traffic and still have to get in a lap time, and that's exactly what happened. It wasn't a great lap, it wasn't a clean lap, he had to pass cars, but he got through to Q3. But that means, of course, he will be starting the race on that soft red Pirelli. Q3 came along, Lewis Hamilton, adrenaline up, 31.3, unbelievable lap from Lewis, everything in a straight line. That section of road I was talking about yesterday, which is the turn 12, breaking into 13, Lewis there was just perfection. He'd had a moment, interestingly, in Q1 there. He'd locked the left front, as we were talking yesterday, with still too much load on the right. The track grip wasn't great. The track grip was different from how it had been this morning. But this is Lewis Hamilton. He makes those mistakes when it doesn't matter, and he learns from them, and he put it all together on that lap. Everything was just, if you watch that lap, it was just all straight lines, nothing untoward about the car at all. And when Valtteri went out in Q3, we saw a little bit of him from overheads, and you could see there demonstrably how much longer his corners were. Rather bewildered after Q3, Valtteri was saying, well, you know, it was a pretty good lap, my second lap. The first lap, he didn't get the temperatures right, but the second lap was a pretty good lap by Valtteri Bottas standards. But what he couldn't see is what we could see, which was the longer corners he's taking on all of the 90-degree lefts and rights. He's got a much later turn in than Lewis on that pole lap. Lewis, when he's not on a pole lap, yeah, maybe you can make comparisons, but the difference between the two on that pole lap, even to the final minutes of Q3, just amazing. Max Verstappen was very lucky in a way, because he'd gone back to the red tyre in Q2 because on the yellow he'd only been 7th or 8th and it was looking pretty dodgy. So they couldn't take a risk. They put him back on the red tyre, but then they stopped the session. Max went out on the red tyre at the end. He got into this thing of going out relatively late to try to avoid the traffic. But he didn't get a lap in, but he still got through to Q3. And as a result, he's starting on the yellow tyre. Q3, he could breathe. He put the red tyre back on the car. After the first run, I thought it was really revealing of the way Max thinks when they said, so how was that, Max? Do you want to change the car? And Max just said, nah, it's about the same. It's no better, but let's not change it. Which was Max Verstappen thinking, right, on this setup with this car, I'm now P3. I'm around where Daniel Ricciardo is, and I think I can find a little bit more just in my driving. I'll focus on what I know. Very Michael Schumacher-esque in that. Right, this is what we have. This is how I'm going to maximize the car. He thought about it and he went out and he did just a brilliant lap to qualify second and to beat Valtteri Bottas. Forget about Daniel Ricciardo, who'd been P3 for a while. This was an amazing lap from Max Verstappen, and it was a reward, really, for a brilliant 2 days. There's a lot of talk yesterday about Red Bull, Honda being in trouble and Renault being quicker. I said that Max had put in a lot of good laps yesterday on both sets of tyres, both compound of tyres, and I think it was a little bit far-fetched to think that Renault were going to beat Red Bull around here, and so it proved. I mean, the Red Bull was just really, really quick, and Max made maximum use of it. Really, really good. So very pleased for him, very pleased for Red Bull to be starting in such a strong position. It makes it a really interesting race tomorrow because Valtteri's there alongside him. They're both on the medium tyre. Lewis is on the red tyre. Lewis's only chance really is to try to get as big a lead as he can possibly get without abusing the tyres, obviously, and trying to keep the stint as long as possible. And then seeing where it goes from there. I doubt that Max can take the race to Valtteri Bottas, but of course anything can happen in terms of the first corner, and if Max is in front of him, that may make quite a big difference to the way they run that stint and the way Valtteri has to look after his tyres. Looking at the other results, very good performance from Sergio Perez, who's looked strong all weekend. As we said yesterday, very good circuit for Racing Points. And Sergio qualified fourth, 32.3. 32.3 to Lewis Hamilton's 31.3. Think about that, 1 second a lap. That's very impressive, isn't it? Well, come to that. Lewis 31.3, Valtteri Bottas 31.9, 0.6 around Sochi, a circuit on which Valtteri's pretty comfortable. And again, to put Max's lap time into perspective, 31.8, and then think about the midfield, the high midfield, the Daniel Ricciardo, who was P3 yesterday. 32.3 Daniel Ricciardo, Max Verstappen 31.8. Very impressive, Max. Carlos Sainz, 32.5. Esteban Ocon, 32.6. Lando Norris, 32.8. Some of these are on used soft tyres, so that needs to be taken account. Pierre Gasly up there too. And Alex Albon scratched in to be P10. So great qualifying session in many ways, and it could be a really, really interesting race tomorrow. We got the red-tyred Lewis Hamilton Mercedes on the pole. We got two yellow-tyred cars behind him, his teammate Valtteri, and of course Max in the Red Bull. The people you wouldn't like to be tonight, I think, the team you wouldn't like to be working for would be Honda, after what happened to Max off the line in Mugello. A good start in Sochi is absolutely critical. And if you make a good start in Sochi from where Max is, he's got a chance to do something with Lewis, or if Valtteri's alongside him, quite a lot can happen by the time they get to the braking area into the first corner. Even without DRS, toes will come into play. So it's going to be a great first corner, that's for sure. Love circuits with long straights leading down to the first corner, particularly if the first corner is relatively tight. So yeah, it's going to be a good one. As I say, if you're Honda and you're thinking, hoping, sure that you've got the electrical problem that appeared in Mugello sorted, then you can sleep well at night. But I don't think that many of them will be too relaxed tonight. I think there'll be a few furrowed brows, but we'll see tomorrow. See you then.